The stars were quiet that night. From the dark edge of the galaxy, the old human listening post, Vigil Station, floated in silence. Only the hum of its engines and the faint blinking lights showed that it was still alive. Inside, Lieutenant Mara Kellen leaned on her console, eyes half closed. It had been 3 years since anyone had sent a distress signal from the outer rim. Space had gone cold and quiet, like the universe was holding its breath. Then, the silence broke. A burst of static hit the comms array so strong it nearly blew out the speakers. Mara jumped to her feet. The transmission wasn't human. The voice that came through was deep, layered, and mechanical, like metal grinding against metal. "No fleet can stop us," it said. "Your species will kneel or burn." The message repeated once, then cut off. Mara froze. Her hands shook as she tried to trace the signal. It came from a sector that, officially, didn't exist anymore, Dawson's Belt. That place had been wiped clean 50 years ago during the Orion War. No survivors. No colonies. Nothing but drifting wreckage and ghost stories. She sent the data to Central Command, her heartbeat quickening. Within minutes, alarms flared across every major defense network in human space. The message spread faster than light-speed relays could carry it. Every admiral, every general, every ship captain heard those words, and none could ignore them. On Earth, in the cold halls of the United Earth Alliance, Admiral Soren Vale stared at the playback. He was old, his uniform decorated with more medals than he could count, but his eyes burned like the war hadn't ended. "That voice," he said quietly. "It's them." "Sir?" asked his aide, a young lieutenant. "The Vrax Dominion," Vale said. "We destroyed their fleets half a century ago. Or we thought we did." The aide looked pale. "Then what do we do now?" Vale stood, his jaw tight. "We do what humans always do. We survive. And if they've come back..." He paused, looking out the window where the earth glowed blue against the dark. "We answer in fire." On the other side of the galaxy, the Vrax fleet moved through the void. Thousands of ships shaped like blades of black glass. Their commander, the warlord Kator, stood at the edge of the command bridge. His species had been broken once, their homeworld burned by human bombardment. But they had rebuilt, hidden in the dark corners of the universe, waiting for this moment. "The humans will resist," said one of his lieutenants, a tall, scaled creature with glowing red eyes. Kator turned slowly. "Yes," he said. "They always do. That is why they must be erased." His claws tapped against the command rail. "They believe their courage will save them. It won't. Courage burns as easily as flesh." He raised a hand, and the massive fleet adjusted formation. Their destination, Sol, the human home system. Back on Vigil Station, Mara received new orders: remain at her post, observe, and report. But she couldn't sit still. She replayed the alien message over and over, trying to hear something else, a code, a pattern, anything. That was when she noticed something strange. Buried beneath the voice was another signal, faint, almost like a whisper. It wasn't alien. It was human. She amplified it. Static cleared. A broken voice came through, weak and trembling. "Don't trust the message, it's not what it seems. They're already here." Then the signal died. Mara's eyes widened. "Already here?" She looked out the viewport, and her breath caught. A shadow moved across the stars. Not a meteor. Not a ship she recognized. It was enormous, like a city drifting through space. Its surface shimmered with black armor, absorbing light. No human ship looked like that. "Command," she said into her mic, voice shaking. "This is Vigil Station. I have visual contact with an unidentified." The rest of her message vanished in a flash of white. For one heartbeat, the entire sector flared brighter than a sun. Then it went dark. When the light reached Earth 8 minutes later, the astronomers watching from orbit gasped. One of the listening posts in the outer rim had just disappeared. No debris. No transmission. Just gone. Admiral Vale watched the readings come in. His voice was calm, but his hand clenched the arm of his chair until his knuckles went white. So it begins, he whispered. Far away, aboard the lead ship of the Vrax fleet, Kator received confirmation. The first human outpost destroyed. His lieutenants roared in victory. But Kator said nothing. He looked into the void where Earth's sun waited, tiny and distant. Let them see our fire, he said softly. Let them remember the name Vrax. On Mars, deep in an underground hangar, a team of engineers worked silently on a massive ship, a weapon built in secret. They had called it Project Titan. 4 years, it had been hidden even from the highest command. But now, with the outer rim burning, its time had come. As the engineers powered it on, the old metal giant awoke with a low, thunderous hum. Lights flickered across its hull, and the letters UES Retribution glowed bright. The war that humanity had buried was about to rise again. And this time, no fleet, alien or human, would stop it. The Retribution towered in the underground hangar, its metal hull reflecting the dim red warning lights. Engineers scurried along catwalks, checking systems, adjusting controls, and whispering updates to one another. Every monitor blinked with calculations, charts, and predictions, every number pointing toward a war that no human wanted but had to face. Captain Rena Joss stepped onto the bridge for the first time. She had trained her whole life for this moment, but nothing in the academy had prepared her for the feeling of standing in front of a weapon this powerful. Her eyes scanned the control panels, and her hands hovered above the console, feeling the hum of energy coursing through the ship. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the tension. "Power core stable, weapon systems online, propulsion at 90% capacity," replied Lieutenant Harv, the youngest officer on the crew. His face was pale, but his voice was firm. Rena nodded. "Good. We leave in 30 minutes. Prepare the crew for immediate deployment." Down below, the engineers finished their final checks. One of them, an older man with a lined face and silver hair, whispered to himself, "I hope this works." Outside the hangar, the sky was red with Martian dust, a faint reminder that even planets could feel the scars of war. No one spoke of the outer rim, not yet. No one wanted to think about the stations and colonies already lost. But the signals were clear. The Vrax had returned, and they would not stop until humanity was nothing but a memory. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, the Vrax fleet advanced. Shadows stretched over systems that humans thought were safe. Kator's fleet was silent, precise, like a predator stalking prey. There were no communications with the ships in formation, only the orders of the warlord, and the deadly compliance of a species born to fight. One scout ship approached Sol's outer perimeter and scanned the human defenses. The readings came back cleaner than Kator expected. "Their weapons are primitive," the scout reported. "Most of the outer colonies have been abandoned. Minimal resistance." Kator's red eyes narrowed. "Do not underestimate them. The humans are always dangerous when cornered. Prepare the strike teams." On the bridge of his flagship, he raised a claw. "Let them see why no fleet can stop the Vrax." Back on Mars, Rena reviewed the mission plans. Retribution would not fight alone. Small attack craft, stealth fighters, and human intelligence ships would accompany it to the outer rim, forming a shield and a spear. Every strategy relied on timing, speed, and precision. But Rena knew that no plan could predict every move the Vrax would make. Lieutenant Harv leaned close to her. "Captain, there's something in the sensor readings. A massive shadow moving near Jupiter. It's not moving like a ship." Rena focused the sensors, zooming in on the anomaly. Her heart skipped a beat. The shape was enormous, larger than any human ship, larger than a station. It was like staring at a mountain drifting through space, black and silent. "They're already in the system," Rena said quietly. Harv's face turned white. "Should we report this to command?" Rena shook her head. "Not yet. They'll panic. We need to be ready before anyone knows what's coming." On Earth, Admiral Vale watched the Martian fleet prepare. He had no illusions about the coming battle. Humanity had survived wars before, but never like this. Never against an enemy who had returned stronger than ever, hiding in the shadows of space. A holographic display lit up in front of him, showing the Vrax fleet closing in. Thousands of ships, black and silent. Vale's hands clenched. He had spent decades building alliances, weapons, and fleets. But even now, he realized that survival would depend on courage, not numbers. He turned to his aides. Prepare the contingency protocols. Every reserve ship, every planetary defense, every hidden weapon must be ready. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity fights. On the bridge of the Retribution, Rena activated the engines. The ship's massive core roared to life, a sound that rattled walls and shook the ground. The hum grew into a deep, vibrating pulse, like the heartbeat of a living creature. "Engage," she said. The ship lifted off, rising through the Martian atmosphere, cutting through dust storms with ease. The crew held their breath as the stars opened before them. Outside, Jupiter's shadow loomed closer. The Vrax ships were already within the outer system. Sensors blipped constantly, tracking every movement. Every crew member on the Retribution knew that once they crossed that line, there was no turning back. Rena gripped the console. "Remember this," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We are humanity, and they will learn that fire answers fire." As the Retribution accelerated toward the darkness, the first shots of a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy were about to be fired. The shadow above Jupiter shifted. A single Vrax ship moved forward, scanning the system, looking for the spearhead of the human fleet. Its sensors caught the pulse of the Retribution's engines, and the Vrax warlord's red eyes gleamed. "They are coming," Kotor said. "And we will be waiting." The galaxy held its breath. The stars blurred as the Retribution slipped into faster-than-light travel. The ship's hull vibrated with the pulse of the engines, and every crew member felt it in their bones. This was no ordinary mission. This was survival. Captain Rena Joss paced the bridge. Her eyes never left the main screen, where the outer system of Sol stretched like a dark canvas. Reports from the scouts kept coming in, shadows moving, readings of alien energy spikes, and faint but deadly signals that made the crew's stomachs turn. Lieutenant Harv spoke quietly, almost to himself. "Captain, it's like the Vrax are everywhere. How can they move this fast?" Rena didn't answer. She knew the question had no easy solution. The Vrax were fast, precise, and brutal. Every human fleet that had encountered them before had been obliterated. But humans had something the Vrax underestimated: unpredictability. Outside the Retribution, the Vrax scout ship hovered near Jupiter's orbit. Its black hull absorbed the dim sunlight, making it nearly invisible. From the bridge of the Vrax flagship, Warlord Kotor watched the readings. "They are here," he said, claws tapping the console. "Prepare the strike grid. Let the humans see the cost of resistance." The scouts detected the energy signature of the massive human ship. Kotor's red eyes narrowed. A Titan-class vessel. They hid it well. But now, it is awake. Thousands of smaller ships fell into formation around the Vrax flagship. They were silent, deadly, waiting for the signal. Inside the Retribution, alarms suddenly blared. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Rena froze for a moment, then grabbed the console. "Report," she shouted. Harv's voice shook. "Sensors detect multiple unidentified ships. They're Vrax. Too many to count. They're surrounding us." Rena's mind raced. Shields up. All weapons online. Prepare the fighter squadron. This is the first strike. Don't hold back. The crew moved with precise coordination. Every warning light, every sensor reading, every weapon system came alive in a mechanical dance. It was beautiful and terrifying. Outside, the Vrax fleet advanced, blades of black glass cutting through space. The first shots came without warning. Plasma pulses streaked across the void, glowing red against the dark. The Retribution's shields flared under the impact, energy dispersing across the hull. The ship shuddered. "Return fire!" Rena yelled. The cannons unleashed a deafening roar. Human fire met Vrak's fire in the blackness of space. The first clash had begun. The smaller human fighters darted between Vrak ships, weaving in and out of enemy fire. Explosions lit up the void like distant fireworks. The crew of the Retribution watched as the battle unfolded around them, every moment a test of skill, courage, and instinct. Lieutenant Harv's console beeped urgently. "Captain, multiple Vrak ships are targeting the civilian colonies near the asteroid belt. If they hit, millions could die." Rena clenched her jaw. "Divert a wing. Protect the colonies. We can't let them get slaughtered." The pilots roared their approval as their fighters split off, leaving the main fleet to engage the Vraks directly. The Retribution's massive guns fired continuously, shaking the hull with each shot. Kator watched the humans' response with interest. "Impressive," he said. "They are brave and foolish. Engage the human fighters. Leave the Retribution for last." From the shadows, Vrak's strike teams moved with deadly precision. They had waited decades for this moment. Their attacks were coordinated, sharp, and lethal. Human ships went down one by one, leaving trails of burning debris. But the humans fought back with unrelenting determination. Even as their ships were destroyed, their fighters darted between enemy fire, striking critical points. Retribution's shields absorbed blow after blow, refusing to break. In the chaos, Rena noticed something. A pattern in the Vrak's attack. Every strike, every movement, had a rhythm. She quickly calculated the weak points. "Fire concentrated on their formation," she commanded. "Target the lead cruisers. Break their line." The crew responded instantly. Cannons fired with perfect synchronization. The lead Vrak's cruisers were hit. Explosions ripped through their hulls. Shockwaves threw smaller ships off course. The humans had scored their first victory. Kator's eyes blazed with fury. "They are more dangerous than I remembered," he hissed. "Prepare the annihilation wave. Leave nothing alive." He turned to the tactical officers. "This is the moment. Show them why no fleet can stop the Vraks." Above Jupiter, the first real blood of this war had been spilled. Human courage met alien fire in a battle that would echo across the galaxy. But as the debris floated in the void, one truth became clear: the humans were not finished. They would not surrender. And somewhere deep in the human fleet, a quiet voice whispered, "We answer in fire." The void of space was alive with fire and explosions. The Retribution and its fleet moved like a living organism, dodging blasts and striking with precision. Every pulse of energy from the Vrak ships was met with human courage, technology, and cunning. Captain Rena Joss gripped the command rail, her knuckles white. The bridge was tense. The crew worked like a single mind, eyes on every monitor, fingers flying across consoles. Retribution's shields flared under constant bombardment, groaning with the strain. "Damage report," Rena barked. "Minor hull breaches on Deck 3 and 5, Harv replied. "Shields are holding, weapon systems fully operational. Fighters reporting heavy losses but engaging successfully." Rena nodded. "Good. Keep pressure on them. Target formation leaders. Focus fire on gaps." Above the asteroid belt, the human fighters engaged the Vrak strike teams sent to destroy colonies. Plasma beams cut through the void, shattering ships like glass. Despite being outnumbered, the humans moved with a fluidity that surprised the aliens. Every maneuver seemed unpredictable, every counterattack precise. Lieutenant Mira Sol, commanding the fighter wing, shouted through her comms, "Hold the line. Protect the civilians. Don't give them an inch." Explosions lit the belt like a deadly fireworks show. Some fighters went down, but the civilians survived. Small settlements that had been abandoned for years now became the front line of humanity's defense. Meanwhile, Kator's fury boiled. "Why do they fight so recklessly? They should fall. They cannot possibly win. A Vrax lieutenant spoke cautiously. Their tactics are not as predictable as expected. They adjust, adapt, anticipate. This is unusual for humans. Kotor's red eyes blazed. It is why they survive, he growled. And it is why they must die. He signaled the annihilation wave. A formation of massive Vrax dreadnoughts powered up their supercannons. Energy arced across space like rivers of fire, moving toward the human fleet. On the Retribution, alarms blared. Super cannon fire incoming. Shields at 60%. Rena's mind raced. She had studied the Vrax tactics, the weaknesses, everything. But this was the first time she had seen a weapon of this scale. Divert all power to forward shields, she ordered. Prepare emergency countermeasures. Fighters, intercept their targeting drones. The crew acted instantly. Energy surged through the forward shields. Fighter wings flew at maximum speed, intercepting smaller drones. The Retribution's hull shuddered as the super cannon beams slammed into the shields. Lights flickered, panels sparked, but the ship held. For a moment, the bridge went silent except for the hum of the engines and the distant explosions outside. Rena took a deep breath. They wanted fear. They wanted panic. We give them fire instead. Harv's console beeped frantically. Captain, Vrax dreadnoughts are regrouping for a secondary assault. If they synchronize, they could breach our outer shields. Rena's eyes narrowed. Then we disrupt them. Fire the Retribution's flanking pulse. The ship groaned as massive energy conduits roared to life. A wave of magnetic disruption shot forward, cracking the formation of the Vrax fleet. Ships wobbled in space, systems sparking and failing. Several smaller Vrax vessels drifted helplessly, easy targets for the human fighters. Excellent! Rena shouted. Now hit them where it hurts. The cannons fired in perfect rhythm. Explosions ripped through the enemy lines. Dreadnoughts that had seemed invincible were damaged, forced to retreat. Kotor's anger erupted. Impossible! These humans, they fight like gods. A lieutenant dared to speak. Warlord, their ship, it's unlike anything we expected. It can withstand our heaviest fire and counterattack immediately. Kotor's claws clenched. Then we shall teach them humility. Focus every ship. Strike at the heart of their fleet. In the chaos of battle, Rena spotted a new threat. A massive Vrax frigate was maneuvering to flank the colonies. She knew this could destroy years of human survival. Divert a wing. Stop that ship, she ordered. Harv, prepare ion torpedoes. We'll cut it down before it reaches them. The torpedoes launched, streaking through space like fiery meteors. The frigate tried to evade, but the human calculations were precise. One direct hit ruptured its hull. Flames and energy discharged in all directions. The ship exploded spectacularly, leaving a trail of debris. The colonies were safe, for now. As the battle raged, the human strategy became clear. They were not just defending. They were learning, adapting, and fighting back with the full might of ingenuity and courage. Every move the Vrax made was countered with precision, every advance met with fire. Rena stood at the command rail, her eyes on the stars. The first clash had been brutal, but humanity had survived. And in doing so, they had sent a message. The war was only beginning. Above Jupiter, Kotor's fury reached its peak. They are defiant. They will pay. But even he could sense the shift. These humans were different. They did not flee. They did not break. They struck back, and with a ferocity that no Vrax had expected. The galaxy waited, holding its breath, as the humans prepared to answer in fire once more. The battle had reached a tense stalemate. The Retribution floated in the heart of the Vrax formation, surrounded by wreckage, plasma trails, and the occasional flare of dying ships. The crew was exhausted, but there was no room for rest. Captain Rena Joss stood at the command rail, scanning the battlefield. Every movement of the Vrax fleet was calculated, precise, deadly. But she had learned something in the past hours. Predictability was their weakness. Humans thrived in chaos. "Harv, bring up the tactical overlay," she ordered. "I want every weak point in their formation mapped." Lieutenant Harv's fingers flew across the console. Data streams blinked and shifted, highlighting the Vrax ship's shields, their weapon vectors, and the gaps between their formations. "There," Rena said, pointing at the display. "Their coordination is perfect, except here." Harv nodded. "If we can strike simultaneously from 3 vectors, we might break their front line." Rena's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the fighter wings. This is our chance. Timing will be everything." In the asteroid belt, Mira Sol's fighters circled, waiting for the signal. The human pilots were tense but ready. Every one of them knew the stakes. Each ship carried the lives of millions across the colonies. Every shot counted. On the bridge of the Retribution, Rena activated the comms. "All units, this is Joss. Synchronize. Attack on my mark. Fire only when we breach their formation. Remember, humanity depends on every one of you." "Understood, Captain," came the responses from the fighter wings. Above Jupiter, the Vrax fleet adjusted their formation. Kator's red eyes scanned for human weaknesses. They hide. They prepare. It is futile. Strike them now. Plasma beams lanced toward the human ships. Explosions ripped through the fighters. Ships were thrown off course. But the humans had already anticipated this. Their engines burned in rapid bursts, weaving unpredictably, while Retribution's cannons targeted the incoming dreadnoughts with precision fire. "Now!" Rena shouted. 3 human wings struck simultaneously. Plasma beams, missiles, and flares surged forward. The Vrax front line exploded in fire. Shields overloaded, ships collided, and chaos erupted. It was beautiful and deadly, a symphony of destruction orchestrated by human hands. Kator roared in rage. "Impossible! They are coordinated, precise. They adapt." A lieutenant reported, voice trembling. "Their central ship. Retribution. It directs every strike. They anticipate every move." Kator slammed his claw. "Then destroy the spearhead. Leave nothing alive." The humans pressed their advantage. Retribution moved with grace, dodging energy beams, launching counterattacks, and coordinating the fighters with uncanny timing. Every Vrax dreadnought that fell was a victory, but the cost was visible. Smoke and sparks filled the bridge as minor damages accumulated. Rena didn't flinch. She had seen worse in simulations, but nothing compared to this. Yet in every explosion, every blaze, she saw the human spirit shining brighter. Fear was present, yes, but it was harnessed, turned into courage. "Harv," she said quietly, "prepare the ion disruptor. I want the lead dreadnought crippled. Make it slow. Make it a target." The massive weapon powered up. Energy arcs crackled across the hull of Retribution, reaching out like fingers of lightning. When it fired, the lead dreadnought shuddered violently. Its systems flickered. Sparks flew from its hull. It drifted, crippled, a perfect target for the next strike. In the midst of battle, Mira Sol spotted a Vrax cruiser trying to escape toward the colonies. She angled her fighter and fired her missiles. Explosions tore through the cruiser, sending debris flying toward the belt. Civilians were safe, for now. The rest of the fleet followed the Retribution's lead. They attacked with precision, every strike coordinated, every maneuver calculated. The humans were no longer on the defensive. They had become hunters. On the Vrax flagship, Kator's face was a mask of fury. "They fight like gods. These humans, they will pay for their arrogance." His lieutenants trembled. "Warlord, their strategy, it is not just bravery. It is genius. They are human, yes, but they are something more." Kator's red eyes glowed brighter. "Then we shall teach them fear and death." Prepare the secondary strike. This ends tonight. But the humans were ready. Every strike the Vrax attempted was anticipated. Every move was countered. The retribution guided them, a giant in the void, showing that human ingenuity and courage could match alien might. On the bridge, Rena watched the Vrax formation crumble. A small smile touched her lips. "They think fear will stop us," she whispered. "They're about to learn. Fire answers fire." The void was alive with fire. The Vrax fleet, once unstoppable, now faltered. Crippled dreadnoughts drifted helplessly, smaller strike ships exploded in brilliant bursts, and the shockwaves of destruction rippled through the system. Captain Rena Joss stood at the command rail of Retribution, eyes scanning the chaos. Her crew moved like a single organism, every action precise, every strike deliberate. They had learned the rhythm of the Vrax, adapted faster than anyone had predicted. Humanity was no longer just defending, it was dominating. "Harv, status," Rena demanded. "Lead dreadnoughts disabled, 50% of the Vrax fleet retreating, fighter wings holding the outer rim," Harv reported, his voice steady despite exhaustion. "Our losses are significant, but we can still press the attack." Rena's eyes narrowed. "Then press it. Push them back. Let them know humanity does not surrender." In the asteroid belt, Mira Sol led her fighters in coordinated strikes. The smaller Vrax ships had regrouped, but the humans had learned their patterns. Every attack they launched was met with precise counterfire. Explosions tore through the alien vessels, and pilots cheered quietly over comms with every success. "This is it," Mira whispered. "Their arrogance will be their downfall." Kator's flagship shuddered as another dreadnought went down. The warlord's red eyes blazed with fury. How can they fight like this? They are humans, fragile, weak, yet relentless." A lieutenant trembled. "Warlord, the Retribution leads their fleet. Every strike, every movement, it coordinates them perfectly." Kator's claws clenched. "Then destroy it. Spare nothing. Let fire teach them humility." But the humans were ready. Rena had anticipated this. The Retribution's ion disruptors and magnetic pulses had already disabled key systems in the Vrax dreadnoughts. Fighters struck at the weak points, tearing through armor and hulls. One by one, the lead ships fell. The Vrax formation collapsed like glass under pressure. The human fleet surged forward, taking advantage of every opening. Retribution fired its massive cannons, energy beams carving a path through the enemy lines. Even the retreating ships were picked off, leaving no escape. Humanity had become the hunter. Kator's fury boiled. They cannot destroy my fleet." A lieutenant spoke cautiously. "Warlord, they are not just attacking. They are outmaneuvering us. Every move, every strike, perfectly timed." Kator slammed his claw against the console. "Then we end this. Fire everything at the Retribution. Destroy their heart." The Vrax unleashed a concentrated barrage, beams of energy so intense they scorched space. The Retribution's shields flared under the assault, warning lights blaring across the bridge. Rena stood firm. "Hold the shields. Fire at the lead dreadnought. Prepare the secondary pulse." The crew moved like clockwork. Energy coursed through the Retribution, reaching every system. Weapons fired in perfect synchronization, the magnetic pulse rippling across space. The lead Vrax dreadnought, the largest and most deadly, shuddered violently. Its shields failed, its systems overloaded, and it exploded in a blinding flash. The Vrax formation fractured completely. Ships fled, drifted, or were destroyed. The once invincible fleet was broken. Kator's voice was a hiss of fury and disbelief. "Impossible! How can these humans survive, fight, destroy?" Rena's voice came through comms, calm and firm. "Because we are humans. And no fleet, no empire, can stop us." The words echoed across the void. Every surviving Vrax ship retreated, the rest scattering into the darkness of space. For the first time in decades, Humanity had not only survived, they had won. On the bridge of the Retribution, cheers erupted. Crew members hugged, wiped sweat from their brows, and stared out at the wreckage of the enemy fleet. They had seen fear, despair, and death. But they had endured. They had fought together and emerged victorious. Rena stood silent for a moment, looking out at the stars. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. "They will return, but so will we. Stronger, smarter, unstoppable." Kator's flagship drifted into the darkness, wounded but alive. The warlord's fury burned, but he knew the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was relentless. And next time, he would face the full might of a species that would never bow. Back on Mars, Admiral Vale watched the battle reports. He allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had faced annihilation and survived. Against impossible odds, they had proven why no fleet could stop them. "This is the legacy of mankind," Vale said quietly. "We fight, we endure, and we answer in fire." The void was quiet now. The shattered remnants of the Vrax fleet drifted like ghosts among the stars. Smoke and sparks glimmered in the darkness, marking where fearsome dreadnoughts had once loomed. Humanity had won, but the victory was hard-earned. Every surviving crew member of the Retribution and its fleet knew the cost. Captain Rena Joss stood on the bridge, hands gripping the rail. Her eyes scanned the battlefield, taking in the scale of destruction. Despite the triumph, a heavy weight rested on her shoulders. War was never clean, never simple. But humans had endured, adapted, and struck back with courage that no alien could match. "Status report," she said quietly. Lieutenant Harv looked up from the console. "Enemy fleet destroyed or scattered. Outer Rim colonies intact. Casualties, high, but manageable. Humanity still stands." Rena nodded. "Good. Let's make sure it stays that way. Begin recovery and support operations. And send a message across the colonies. We fight. We endure. We survive." On Mars, Admiral Vale observed the aftermath through live feeds. Relief and pride filled him. Humanity had faced annihilation and survived. Against overwhelming force, they had not only defended their colonies but shattered a fleet that had once been thought unstoppable. Vale turned to his staff. "Record every strategy, every tactic. Humanity cannot rely on luck again. But let this be remembered: courage, unity, and ingenuity are our greatest weapons." The room was silent for a moment, then erupted in quiet applause. They had survived a war that should have ended them, and they had done it together. Across the void, Kator's flagship limped through the darkness. The warlord's red eyes burned with fury and disbelief. His fleet had been broken by humans, by a species he had long considered weak. "They adapt, they endure, they fight like nothing else," he hissed. "This is not over. Humanity will pay. Eventually." But even in his rage, Kator understood a truth he could not admit. Humans were relentless, cunning, and unpredictable. They did not fear death. They did not bow to power. And that made them dangerous beyond measure. Back on the Retribution, the crew celebrated quietly. Survivors of the fighter wings returned, exhausted but alive. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damage, and communications teams relayed messages to the colonies. Families and civilians waited, and now they could breathe for the first time in days. Mira Sol stepped onto the bridge. "Captain, we did it. We really did it." Rena smiled faintly. "Yes. But this is only the beginning. They will come again. And when they do, we will be ready." The stars seemed calmer now, but the memory of fire and destruction lingered. Humanity had faced annihilation and met it with courage, strategy, and unity. They had fought against an enemy that believed no human fleet could resist them, and they had proven otherwise. Rena walked to the viewport, looking at the distant planets and stars. "We are humans," she whispered. "We endure. We adapt. We fight. And no force, no fleet, can stop us." Harv joined her silently. "Captain, the message from the Outer Rim survivors. They're rebuilding. They want to help us prepare for the next attack. Rena nodded. Good. Humanity is stronger than ever. And as long as we stand together, nothing can destroy us. In the far reaches of space, the broken Vrax ships drifted silently. The survivors would report back to their warlord, and the story of humanity's fire would spread across the galaxy. They would remember the name Retribution. They would remember the courage of a species that refused to kneel. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the humans' message burned like a beacon. No fleet can stop us. On Mars, in the quiet aftermath, Admiral Vale stood outside the command center, looking at the stars. The human race had survived a war that should have ended them. But more than survival, they had emerged stronger, united, and unbroken. He smiled softly. We answer in fire. And we will always answer. The stars seemed to shine brighter that night, as if honoring the courage of a species that would never yield. Humanity had faced annihilation, and had won.